How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Vampiress Carmilla number 7 from March 2022. Vampiress Carmilla is classically styled anthology horror, black and white, much like the 1970s comics were. Really cool, really fun. If you guys are fans of The Creeps, which is now Shudder magazine, this was made by the same people, and if you like one, you like the other. It's anthology, so you can jump on whenever you want and not have to worry about having read all the past issues. But also, this is number 7. This magazine comes out bi-monthly, every other month, and the fact that we're on number 7 means that this is the first issue of the comic's second year. So this is we passed the 1-year birthday, and now we're into the second year. It's really fun. I always think of Vampiress Carmilla as the new comic, but it's a year old now, so that's really cool. With that being said, let's take a closer look at the cover. We get the Vampiress Carmilla logo in the classic pink-purple. This is a lot like the color of the first issue, and I really think it's the best color for the logo there. And then after that, we get the painting. We get a lady riding on her dragon, a really classic fantasy image. Someone actually told me recently that a lot of the covers for The Creeps, Carmilla, and Shudder are all classic 1970s paintings, like real 1970s paintings, that they're giving new life here and reincorporating into the book. And I have to say, I really love this classic, 1970s stuff. You can see the bikini warrior with her trident and sword, and she's about to just go kick a lot of butt, probably the inspiration for things like, Tarna from Heavy Metal, which would come out in the 80s, but this is the Dragon Riders of Ganymede, see page 34. They're reincorporating the cover into the story, which I think is pretty cool. Anyway, on the back of the cover, we'll get Carmilla's Scary Tales, where every issue she tells us about a female horror character, and this time around is witches. And we get to see she's talking about how witches are burned at the stake, how some of them had magic powers like bringing the dead back to life, necromancy, and how there was a book that was a bestseller for over 100 years called Hammer of Witches, which was a witch hunting manual. That's pretty interesting. I didn't know witch hunters had their own special book. Anyway, Vampiress Carmilla, here's the table of contents. If you want to pause here, you can read the full credits for this magazine. And then we get Carmilla's Blood Letters, and this will also have the Carmillas in the Castle section. And then we have the 6 stories. The Long and Short of It, Skeleton Crew, Ladies' Night Out, Hide in Plain Sight, The Dragon Riders of Ganymede, that's the cover story, and My Brother's Creeper, and then we get all these little preview pages on the side here, so that's pretty cool. And after that, we get the letters page, where if you want to, you can write into Carmilla and tell her what you think of the magazine. Your magazines are awesome. I have read all your issues so far and love the stories, and I really like that picture of her holding up the letter there. Anyway, after this, we're going to be talking about the stories themselves. Now, I won't be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the stories are about. So let's go ahead and dive right in to the Carmilla in the Castle section. This time, Carmilla is trying to paint Mr. Hyde. However, he recently is having a problem where he switches randomly between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and Carmilla's model is literally disappearing, So she goes and she says, okay, well, let's just go ahead and start telling scary stories to all the creatures of the castle, and that's where we get into the first story, the Long and Short of It. And of course, like most horror hosts, Vampiress Carmilla does love dressing up, so here's her dressed in her nurse's outfit. Then we get the main characters of the story. This nurse has just gotten engaged, and this is a new nurse to the hospital, and she wants to be married too. Now, she gets a special assignment a mysterious patient in room 305, and the patient's name isn't listed on any of the records, and she's told that she was requested specifically because he likes redheads. And she goes, okay, the hospital doesn't normally go for things like this, which means that this guy must be incredibly rich if he can manipulate the hospital like that. And she goes in, and there's this guy in an old school iron lung. And she goes, okay, this is weird, so she secretly takes a picture of him and looks him up later on the internet and finds that he had polio, and then there was a very rare and special complication, and he's been in the iron lung ever since, but he started investing in horror movies, and a lot of them became cult classics, and he got very, very rich off of his movies. So she goes, okay, this guy's rich and I know he likes me. Maybe I can, try to get some money out of him. And she's going to go on classic Tales from the Crypt style plotting and try to influence him. Now, that being said, yeah, this story does have a pretty fun bit on the end there, a really interesting twist, and really does feel like one of the wacky Tales from the Crypt twists you might see. Overall, a really fun classic story there. Really did love that last page with a really out of nowhere image, and you're like, oh wow, she's in quite the predicament there. But anyway, after that we have the second story called Skeleton Crew, and there's this hard-boiled private investigator, and he says he was tasked to hunt this guy down, and he shot him and said, I'll just say he pulled a gun on me. So this guy has a really high kill count in all his cases. But the police get there, and this guy is turned into a skeleton, and they don't know how that happened, So that's sort of the mystery behind this, is why did this guy he killed just randomly quickly turn into a skeleton? I really do love this next page, him and he's talking to the police, and just look how black and film noir that page is. Really, really cool. But anyway, you get him with his secretary there, and he gets a new case, and the guy, once again, after he shoots him, the police come, and he's turned into a skeleton again. So a good mystery of why is this happening, and it has a pretty cool reveal at the end. Now, that being said, I kind of wish that this was, a lot longer. It's a really fun story, and I wish this had a few more pages to let the mystery really breathe. But overall, a fun story. After that, we get a werewolf story called Ladies' Night Out, and this woman and her mother are werewolves, and she talks about how her husband goes out all the time, but she's left alone at home, and she doesn't like being left alone at home all the time, and she wants to go out and be a werewolf, and the grandmother's like, I don't know about that, you're not good at controlling being a werewolf, but she convinces her to go out anyway, and they go out and wreak havoc as werewolves, but unfortunately, the grandmother knows there's humans nearby. The daughter, well, mother and daughter rather, the daughter doesn't listen, and that results in the grandmother getting shot. So this story, it goes on for a bit, and it really is kind of like this woman's life as a werewolf, with its twists and turns and feeling neglected, and the werewolf being a metaphor for wanting to go out there and, live who she wants to be. And it really does have lots of time to breathe. There's things like how she'll eventually meet another werewolf, but she doesn't know who he is as a human, And it's a pretty cool story, and I won't go too far into the end because I'll let you just see where it gets to on your own. But really fun about werewolf life, But anyway, the next one, this is a vampire one, and this is called Hide in Plain Sight. And it's about this vampire hunter, and he talks about how in the past, Carmilla talks about how in the past, vampires were counts and barons, and in turn, you couldn't really question them, and that's how they get away with a lot of what they do. But now in America, those statuses aren't necessarily the same, and how a lot of vampires have learned to blend in, like this one who's a night nurse that's stealing blood from the blood bank so no one ever finds her. but of course this guy does. And then it talks about how there's this singer, Mona Midnight, and he suspects that this singer is secretly a vampire, and all that goth imagery is really just how the vampire wants to be, and how she only stays up at night because she's a vampire. So the hunter's really beginning to suspect that, you know, in the past there were counts and barons, but now in the present they're celebrities, and people will excuse the vampire tropes because that's just who she wants to be. And I do love she has a little dog. I'm always a fan of dogs here. So this guy sets up a fan site trying to score an interview so that he can sneak into her house and kill her, you know, under the guise of doing the interview. And this is one of those stories that for the longest time I'm like, okay, I think I know where this is going, but no. Leave it to Vampiress Carmilla to really pull a twist out of nowhere, and it really was surprising, but at the same time made sense. I really do love the ending of this story, and I definitely won't spoil it for you. Anyway, after that, we have the cover story, The Dragon Riders of Ganymede, and you see this city on one of, Jupiter's. One of Jupiter's moons, and the city is being attacked, and it all seems hopeless when this lady rides in on her dragon, and Carmilla's like, well, how did we get here? Turn the page. And we see that this is all a story being written by this lady, and her roommate's like, hey, don't you think that's a little unrealistic? And she's like, I don't care, I'm writing what I like, whatever. But then after the roommate leaves, she suddenly realizes that she's been transported into the world of her story. So, a really classic, you know, what if I could go into fantasy style story. And, yeah, pretty fun. You know, gotta love stories like Riders and stuff, you know. And it's kind of on the shorter side and kind of on the simpler side. But what can I say? It's a story about going into a fictional land, seeing the character you created. Pretty fun, even if it is, you know, short and, you know, to the point. But I thought it was fun. Anyway, I have to skip past a few ads here. Vampiress Carmilla ads are towards the end. But then we get My Brother's Creeper in this classic cartoony style. You know, I do like, you know, each of the artists has kind of their own style, and you really notice the cartoony one. But you get these two brothers, the simpler one and the meaner, smarter one, and the simpler one gets a cat, and the mad scientist brother throws it into the pit to the creature. Now, the younger brother doesn't know the creature's name, can't pronounce it, and just refers to it as Creeper. So it's this big goo monster that absorbs whatever you throw in it, and he's like, I need food for this monster. And we get a bit of an origin story. The brother was trying to make a food, you know, some sort of super enzyme, and he feeds it to this one-celled organism, and it gets bigger and bigger, and he keeps feeding it and giving it more and more stuff, and here's him showing it to his new girlfriend who, you know, you show her a big mass of ooze, she's not necessarily going to be too big of a fan of that, but the younger brother starts to get jealous. He's been mistreated for a long time. The other brother gets the girl, and he's going to get kind of upset. So, yeah, brother fight each other revenge story, giant, massive, pulsating goo, and a really fun, cartoony style artwork. And yeah, gotta love just classic comic cheese with that one. But we're already at the end. I can't believe it went through that issue pretty fast. But all 6 stories were pretty good, and a lot of them did have really good unexpected twist. Like that vampire one, I thought I saw the twist coming from a mile away, and then all of a sudden, no, it's something different. And there's lots of, you know, really fun stories that I'll remember for a while. Classic The Blob style monster right at the end, a werewolf story, a vampire story, lots of classic monsters in here, and overall another really good fun issue. Definitely gotta like it. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Creeps /Carmilla /Shudder playlist, so if you want to see all the magazines that I've reviewed from this publisher, they'll all be in that playlist. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.